The lunch crowd was loud, trays clattering, voices overlapping, steam rising thick around me in the dish pit, until I heard the sound of one tray crashing harder than the rest. I looked up, water dripping from my hands, and froze. Faces in the dining hall were twisted in panic. My eyes followed theirs and landed on the man in the gray suit, Ethan Clarke, the COO. His hands clawed at his throat, his cheeks already turning a deep, terrible purple. He was choking. No one moved. Not the investors at his table, not the workers or clerks scattered around, just silence and fear. I dropped the plates in my hands and ran. My heart thundered, but my voice came out steady. "Stand up." He tried. His legs shook, but he couldn't rise. I yanked him upright, wrapped my arms around his middle, and pulled once. Nothing. Pulled again. Still stuck. Third time, I felt his body jerk, and a thin fishbone shot out of his mouth, clinking against a glass. He sagged back into the chair, coughing, sucking air like it was the sweetest thing in the world. Every eye in the room followed me as I bent down, picked up the fallen tray, wiped my hands on my apron, and walked back to my sink. The whispers started even before I reached the dish pit. They swirled around faster than steam. The dishwasher saved the boss. It was after closing when I heard my name. I turned, half expecting Madame Stella's sharp voice, but instead it was Ethan himself at the kitchen door. No tie now, just a plain shirt. Stella hovered nearby, arms crossed, but she let him through. "May we talk?" he asked. I set down the pot I was scrubbing. Soap clung to my sleeves. "I owe you my life," he said, his voice still rough from the choking. "Thank you." I shrugged, trying to hide the shake in my chest. "Anyone would have helped." "Yet only you did," he answered. "Tell me about yourself." So I did. Short, clipped facts. 22 years old. No parents. Studying accounting at night. 3 jobs to scrape together fees and rent. He listened carefully, then drew a long, slow breath. "Our company foundation can pay your tuition, books, fees, even a small living grant." I wiped a drop of water from my chin. My guard shot up instantly. "Why me?" "Because what you did today shows character," he said. "No strings attached, only support." I folded my arms across my wet apron. "I don't want pity money." "Take a week," he said, pulling out a simple business card and holding it out to me. "Call if you choose yes, and write your own terms." He nodded once to Madame Stella, then walked away. I slipped the card into my pocket, but my heart was louder than the dish machine pounding behind me. I didn't know if the offer was a gift or a trap. I only knew one thing for certain. It could change everything. 1 week later, I stood outside Clarke Foods' Human Resources office. My hand shook as I held the paper I had drafted on the library computer, but my eyes stayed steady. 4 hours of sleep was all I'd had, and every line of my scholarship plan was etched into my head. Madame Stella met me at the door, her arms folded. "Sure you want to do this, girl?" she asked. I nodded. "If I don't set the rules now, they will set them for me." Inside, Ethan was waiting with Karen Hill, the company's legal officer. The room felt too bright, too plain, the kind of space where decisions stick. A single contract, 10 pages thick, packed with fine print, sat on the table. Ethan gave me a smile, but I didn't return it. "Not yet." "Thank you for your offer," I said firmly, placing my 2-page document next to theirs. I wrote a shorter one. Karen's eyebrow shot up. Ethan glanced at my paper, then motioned for us to sit. I stayed with Madame Stella behind me, her presence like a shield. I laid out my terms, pointing at each line. 1, no work owed except normal internships. I will not be tied to a job after graduation unless I choose it. 2, freedom to choose any business degree. If I find a better program or major, I switch without penalty. 3, monthly stipend managed by an outside trustee. Money goes from foundation to trustee to my bank, not through you. 4, right to walk away if terms change. If the board cuts funding or adds rules, I leave debt-free. 5, summer dish shifts stay open. I want grounding. Madame Stella keeps me on break schedules if she agrees. Madame Stella gave a curt nod behind me. Ethan read each line slowly, then lifted his eyes. "Fair, clear, and strong," he said. "I sign." Karen began. But the legal." Ethan cut her off, voice firm. "Draw a simple addendum. Our foundation pays tuition, stipend, and trustee fees. Nora's terms govern." He signed both copies, then handed me the pen. My chest burned as I realized I'd been holding my breath. I signed, slid the paper back, and only then let out the air with a sharp exhale. Ethan shook my hand. "Welcome to your new chapter," he said. I almost smiled. Madam Stella actually did. But she hid it with a cough. A clock ticked. A bus engine roared outside. The cafeteria sink hissed in my ears even though I wasn't near it. For me, that was the music of the next 3 years. First year, learning the pace, weekdays 5 a.m. alarm, cold shower in the hostel bathroom shared with 6 other girls. 6 a.m. Bus ride. I read Accounting 101 notes, lips moving silently. 7 a.m., 3 p.m., Clarke Foods cafeteria shift. Scrub trays, load dishwasher, wipe tables. Madam Stella barked at us, but sometimes she praised my speed. 8 p.m., university lectures. I sat at the back, still smelling of bleach. 8:30 p.m., library. Quick supper from my lunchbox, bread and groundnut, then homework. 11 p.m., hostel. Laundry by hand, then sleep. Weekends, Saturday tutoring. First years struggled with basic math, and I charged a small fee. Sunday street vending, bottled water and groundnut at the football ground. Each term, Ethan's presence came only in a single envelope, tuition paid receipts and a folded note. Good start. Keep the flame. E. I taped every note to my hostel wall, right under a cheap calendar. Second year. Pressure rises. The classes grew sharper, harder. Cost accounting, business law, statistics. Each one felt like a mountain, but I climbed. I recorded lectures on my phone, replayed them while washing dishes, whispering definitions over the clang of pots. I passed the exam with 85%. Relief washed over me, but whispers reached my ears even before the ink on my grade sheet dried. A cafeteria clerk leaned close while stacking trays and muttered that finance director Mark Stone had called Ethan's scholarship leaking kegs in a dry season. My stomach tightened, but I said nothing. If they thought I was waste, then my grades would be the only reply I could give. So I pressed harder. More notes, less sleep, no excuses. When the next envelope came, Ethan's term note carried a single line. Storms test roots. You're holding. E. E. I read it twice before pinning it on my wall. I never saw the boardroom myself, but I felt its tremors. Word filtered down through gossip. Ethan had stood before the directors with my name in his mouth. They had weighed me like numbers on a ledger. Mark Stone with his sharp tongue calling me a line item. Angela Reed demanding proof. Jack Hughes saying gratitude doesn't sell soup. I pictured Ethan at that long window on the 12th floor, city lights at his back, facing them all with steady eyes. He had told them I wasn't a cost. He had told them I was a prototype, a ladder, even a near-death debt. And when the room went quiet, they gave him 2 years. 2 years for me to prove that one dishwasher could turn into something more. I didn't hear this from Ethan. I pieced it together in fragments. From a clerk's gossip, a driver's mutter, and the weight I saw on Ethan's shoulders the one time he passed through the cafeteria that week. Smile thinner than usual. My third year closed with exams and an empty wallet. Humid air clung to my skin the afternoon I checked the campus mailboxes. Inside mine lay a thick white envelope. Dear Miss Banks, we are pleased to offer you a 6-month internship with FarmerFresh Logistics. FarmerFresh, Clarke's sharpest rival in the region. My throat went dry. The placement wasn't mine to choose. The university's system had matched me there. I folded the letter carefully, heart thudding. That night, I drafted an email. Good evening. I have been placed at FarmerFresh for my required internship. I will treat all data as confidential and remain professional. Best regards, Nora Banks. An hour later, Ethan's reply came. 2 lines only. Learn everything. Proud of you. E. No hint of worry, no trace of doubt. I stared at the words. Should I feel relieved or guilty? I couldn't decide. The FarmerFresh offices were nothing like Clarke's cafeteria floors. Their walls were painted green, bikes parked in rows outside, and the air smelled faintly of roasted groundnut instead of bleach. Daniel Wright, head of logistics, shook my hand firmly. Show me what you can do, he said. My first task was 3 months of delivery data, routes, fuel costs, spoilage returns. I buried myself in spreadsheets until my eyes burned. On day 3, a pattern jumped out, half-empty bikes on return trips. I sketched a quick plan, used them to haul farm waste for animal feed. A cost turned into revenue. Daniel's brows shot up. Good catch. Turn it into a mini report. He pinned my note to his corkboard. I never spoke of Clarke Foods unless others did. When colleagues joked about The old giant across the highway? I kept my face blank. When someone mocked Clarke tomato paste as too thick, I stirred my rice silently. Each night I opened my notebook and rewrote my rule. Work hard, learn fast, speak little. Halfway through my second month, the trustee's envelope arrived as usual. Inside was the tuition receipt, and folded within it. Another note in Ethan's hand. Storms test roots. You're holding. I pressed it against my chest before pinning it beside the others. I stared at Ethan's handwriting, then slid the note into a drawer instead of taping it to my wall. Doubt flickered. Was I betraying the hand that had helped me? I told myself the internship was not a choice. It was the path laid before me. The Lean Chain Project. In month 4, Daniel called me into a meeting with FarmerFresh's COO, Linda Adams. Nora, show Linda your bike route model, he said. I clicked through the slides. Local hubs, predictive routing, cost cuts of 20%. Linda's eyes tracked every point, her head nodding slowly. We'll present this at the industry summit, she said. You lead the data section. My throat went dry. I could already picture Ethan on the other side of that stage. That okay? Linda asked. Yes, I said, my voice quiet but steady. One cautious, the night before the summit, my phone buzzed. Ethan's name lit the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Good evening, his calm voice said. Hello, sir. I heard you're leading FarmerFresh's pitch. Yes. There was a long silence. Rain tapped my window like nervous fingers. Do your best, Ethan said at last, no holding back. I closed my eyes. I won't. Tomorrow, he said, and the line went dead. I set the phone down. My heart hammered. The conference hall smelled of polished wood and coffee. CEOs mingled beneath banners that read Feeding the Future. Clarke Foods presented first. I watched Ethan speak of sun-powered mills, biodegradable wraps, community training. His voice was sure, applause rolling like a tide. Then it was our turn. Daniel's voice rang out. Data lead, Nora Banks. I walked to the podium, palms slick with sweat. Our model moves 1 ton of grain for 8 cents instead of 11, I said, forcing my voice steady. Slides flashed, bike icons, cost lines dropping. In the front row, Ethan sat listening. Our eyes met once. The room tilted. During Q&A, he raised his hand. Ethan, your plan depends on dry roads. August floods cut routes in half. Me, we reroute via highland paths. Loss under 4%, still below your waste rate. A judge rang a bell. Decision in 1 week, he said. Cameras clicked in the flashes of light. I stepped off stage, my knees weak. The alarm on my phone buzzed at 4:30 a.m. I sat up on my narrow hostel mattress, rubbing sleep from my eyes. Rain still drummed on the tin roof from the night storm, but the air inside was warm with the body heat of 6 sleeping roommates. On the plastic chair at the foot of my bed hung the only jacket I owned that looked anything like executive. Navy cotton, pressed smooth under a borrowed iron. I pulled it on over a white blouse, buttoned to the collar. In the inner pocket, I checked again. 3 flash drives, 2 with my FarmerFresh slides, 1 blank for backup. I whispered a short prayer, steady voice, clear mind, then tiptoed over sleeping legs to the corridor. Downstairs, a yellow taxi idled. Daniel leaned from the back window. Ready? He asked. I nodded, climbed in, and clasped the leather folder on my knees. The ride across Lagos took 40 minutes. The city was only just waking, streets slick with rain, billboards glowing above. Clarke Foods ads loomed, bold and towering, facing smaller FarmerFresh signs that promised cheaper staples, fresher grain. I studied them, thinking of the numbers behind every claim. Cost per ton, spoilage rates, margins. Today, those numbers would be my weapon. Outside the Blue Palm Hotel, security waved us through. My breath caught when I saw Clarke Foods delivery vans lined nose to nose with FarmerFresh's green bikes, 2 rival jerseys at the starting line. Inside the conference lobby, dark wood panels reflected chandeliers. Tables displayed name tags, Clarke Foods in red, FarmerFresh in green. I picked up mine, slipped the lanyard around my neck, and followed Daniel into a side room labeled Speakers Only. Ethan stood at the far end, tightening the knot of his blue tie in a mirror. His junior assistant fussed with the projector cable in his briefcase. When his eyes caught mine, he gave a polite nod. I returned it, a flutter rising in me that was half pride, half dread. We hadn't spoken since that short phone call. Focus, Daniel whispered, clearing his throat. He pressed the presenter clicker into my hand. First 5 slides, you lead. I follow with finance, Linda closes with risk. I nodded, opened my folder, and scanned my talking points. I had practiced them until the words felt like bone, yet my palms were damp. 10 minutes later, ushers led both teams backstage. From behind the curtain, I heard chairs sliding, greetings exchanged in a blend of English and Yoruba, the smell of coffee mixed with lemon air freshener. The master of ceremonies, Martin Hayes, stepped up. His voice boomed through the hall. Welcome, industry partners. Today we compare 2 visions for feeding West Africa. Up first, Clarke Foods. I stayed behind the curtain as Ethan walked out. He didn't stride. He moved with calm, measured steps, hands relaxed. A slide glowed behind him. Solar-powered mills, zero-waste future. His words rolled out. Sun tracking, village training, composting machines, without notes. The audience leaned forward. I saw his directors nodding in the front row. He ended with one line on the screen. Food for all, waste for none. Applause swelled, polite but strong. The moderator shook his hand. Thank you, Mr. Clarke. Next, FarmerFresh. Daniel walked first, offering an introduction, then gestured to me. Under the hot lights, I almost froze, but my legs carried me. At center stage, 100 faces blurred together. I clicked the first slide. Lean chain, local bikes. Good morning, I began. My own voice sounded strange in the speakers, but steady enough. Every extra kilometer of grain travel is a slice off a student's meal. We cut the travel. Slides flipped. Maps, red dots for current mills, green lines for new bike routes. Charts where costs toppled like dominoes. When I clicked to rain plan, I noticed Ethan tilt his head. I explained the reroute logic tied to rainfall data, and a murmur of approval rose from the crowd. At minute 6, I shifted to local co-ops. Farmers kept more profit. Bikes carried grain and waste that could be turned into animal feed. Daniel followed with the numbers, revenue, and return meters. Linda finished with risk management, cash buffers, rotating bike maintenance. Martin Hayes reappeared. Thank you, FarmerFresh. Applause again. Was it louder than before? Maybe my racing pulse fooled me. Then Q&A. Judge 1. Clarke's mills produce flour at scale. How will your bike model cope with surges? I answered, we group orders at co-op hubs to match mill capacity. Surge absorbed by short-haul trucks already in market. Judge 2. FarmerFresh. Rains ruin roads. How is spoilage controlled? I said, waterproof sacks, highland detours, spoilage rejected at 4%, still 2% below industry. Ethan raised his hand. Bikes cost less, but riders face fatigue. What about health insurance for them? I steadied myself. Included, group scheme funded from saved fuel costs. Then I looked at him and asked, your diesel shift before solar conversion, how do you offset carbon in the interim? He gave a small smile. Through biochar soil programs in 5 farming regions. His answer was sharp, precise. The exchange ended without heat, just nods. Judges thanked us, announced results would come in a week. I walked off stage on shaky knees. Daniel slapped my shoulder. You killed it. I smiled faintly, though inside my nerves still spun. In the lobby, company reps mingled. Some shook my hand, praising the model. Clarke Foods staff passed with cordial congratulations. One of Ethan's assistants handed me a bottle of water. Mr. Clarke said to give you this. Thank you, I said softly. By late afternoon, the event wound down. Crowds funneled into the underground parking. I found Daniel by the exit ramp. Taxi lines are wild, he muttered. I'm calling one. He lifted his phone, frowned. No signal. Come with me. Roof might be better. We climbed 6 flights up a bare stairwell. Thick clouds rolled above the city. On the roof, Daniel drifted off, arm outstretched for reception. I paced near a low wall. From here, both company logos towered across Lagos, Clarke Foods in red, FarmerFresh in green, staring each other down. A crack of thunder. Rain burst open, drenching us. Daniel shouted from the doorway, then dashed downstairs to find shelter. I ran to the only cover, a concrete pillar under a flickering light. Someone was already there. Ethan. Ethan opened the door himself. I hadn't expected that. My folder felt heavier in my lap than it should, my palms slick against the cardboard cover. The board wants proof your idea is not a dream, he said, voice low, eyes holding mine for just a second too long. I nodded, stood, and forced my legs to carry me inside. The long table stretched like a gauntlet. Jack Hughes, Mark Stone, Angela Reed, and the others sat in a row, their expressions unreadable. I greeted each of them, my voice steady, though my heart beat against my ribs. I laid out the handouts one by one, neat stacks before each director. When I reached Ethan's place, his fingers brushed the paper as though he wanted to reassure me. I didn't let myself pause. I clicked the projector on, the first slide glowing against the polished boardroom wall. Slide 1, I began, breathing through the tension in my throat. Here is the demand volume. No single firm can meet it alone. Clarke Foods mills cannot reach schools quickly enough. FarmerFresh's delivery network lacks processing scale, but together, coverage is full. A few heads tilted forward. I clicked again. Slide 2, the combined asset map. Clarke's mills, FarmerFresh's co-ops and bikes, existing cold rooms, all linked. Distribution costs fall by nearly a third. I kept my voice calm, even as heat prickled my spine. Ethan sat silent watching. Another click. Slide 3, profit share. A clean 50-50 split with transparent audit trails. Mark Stone tapped his pen, frowning. Who controls quality checks? I didn't falter. Joint team, 2 representatives from each company. Monthly site visits, shared standards, documented protocols. No side dominates the other. I felt their eyes measuring me, weighing not just the plan, but me. My voice didn't shake. Inside, though, every answer was a small battle against the thought that I was only here because of Ethan's scholarship. No, I was here because I earned these numbers, because the model worked. One entity registered under both boards, I said, meeting their eyes one by one. Dispute clause tied to commercial arbitration court. Jack leaned back in his chair, suspicion heavy in his voice. Why should we trust FarmerFresh after years of price wars? For a heartbeat, I froze. Then I steadied myself. Because this contract is bigger than rivalry. It feeds 1 million children. If we let pride win, they lose. Silence. My pulse drummed loud in my ears. Then Ethan's voice cut through, steady, sure. She's right, he said. Also note, cost of losing is higher than cost of trusting. Mark Stone bent over the sheets again. He frowned, lingered, then gave the smallest nod. Jack's voice dropped low. We vote. Hands lifted, 6-4, 3 against. My lungs burned as if I'd been holding air for hours. Motion passed. The very next day, I sat in a neutral hotel room, papers spread across a long table. Clarke's lawyers on one side, FarmerFresh's on the other. Daniel handed me water, his eyes encouraging. Clause by clause, we argued, compared, redrafted. Midnight came, and signatures finally filled the last page. I exhaled so hard it felt like I had carried the whole room on my shoulders. Ethan shook Daniel's hand. Linda crushed me in a hug. 1 week later, the announcement came. The joint venture had won all 4 regions. Newspapers blared. Rivals unite to feed schools. Factory horns blared. FarmerFresh riders shouted joy down dirt roads. Clarke mill workers danced between silos. I stood still in the middle of it, stunned, proud, terrified, because now we had to deliver. And we did. Within 3 months, Clarke's first solar mill spun alive in River County. FarmerFresh bikes carried grain down paths so narrow even trucks would have sunk. Local papers printed photos of children smiling above bowls that steamed in the morning sun. I watched Jack Hughes during one mill inspection, his rough hand touching a hot panel. He turned toward Ethan. Your orphan paid off, he muttered. I felt heat in my face. Ethan corrected him quietly. Her name is Nora. October sunlight poured into Clarke Foods' glass atrium. I stood in the wings as employees filled the rows, their chatter buzzing like a hive. A banner stretched high. Partnerships feed progress. Jack stepped up to the podium, voice commanding. This year's success came from courage to work with former rivals. The architect of that courage is here. My feet carried me on stage, my charcoal suit still feeling borrowed though it was mine. The crowd clapped, harder than I expected. I remembered dish gloves, suds in my hair, trays on my shoulder, and now a tablet in my hand, a new title in my grasp. Effective today, Jack declared, Nora Banks becomes head of strategic partnerships. She will report to our COO, Ethan Clarke. The clapping rose, echoing against glass. In the third row, I spotted Madame Stella dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. My throat closed, but I forced words out. Food is trust you can taste, I said. Thank you for believing a dishwasher could read numbers and lead teams. Let's keep doors open for the next hidden talent. Applause washed over me. Ethan joined me on stage and shook my hand. in full view of everyone. Later, beneath frangipani trees, the noise was gone, only bird calls and the hush of evening. Ethan guided me to a bench. He carried a small wooden box, and when he opened it, my breath caught. "I saved this from the rain night," he said. Inside lay a ring, steel and gold twisted together. "Steel from the old sink you scrubbed," he explained softly. "Gold from a brooch my wife never wore. Both pasts, one circle. Tears blurred my sight. Will it bend? Steel for strength. Gold for kindness," he said. "Together they hold." Then he knelt, no cameras, no board, just damp grass and the two of us. "Nora, you gave me breath twice, once in the cafeteria, once in the boardroom. Will you marry me?" I laughed through tears, a sound freer than I had ever heard from myself. "Yes, Ethan, with all my heart." The ring slid onto my finger. Perfect fit. From behind, Madame Stella appeared carrying crystal glasses and cider. "Thought you'd need these," she said. She poured, raised her glass. "From paper cups to power suits, and now crystal. May respect stay thicker than any sauce." We toasted in the fading light. Monday morning, I opened the door to my new office. It had once been a storage cubicle, now painted, cleaned, a desk waiting. On it lay a single sheet, an internship application from a mailroom girl asking for a chance in data. I smiled, signed quickly. Approved. Start next week. Learn fast, ask questions. Nora Banks. On the wall above, I taped Ethan's oldest note. Keep the flame. Beneath it, I added a fresh sticky. Pass the torch. 1 year later, children still ate warm meals. Mills hummed, bikes buzzed. Clarke Foods announced record growth, and the board expanded the scholarship program to 10 new students. On the cafeteria wall hung 2 photos side by side, me in an apron, arms locked around a choking executive, and me in a suit signing the joint venture contract. Visitors paused and whispered, "Same person?" Madame Stella would nod, hands on her hips. "Yes, and don't forget, there are more where she came from. Look around." Some did, and another story began.